Hi, kia ora. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on Development Feasibility 101. So just give me a couple of seconds to get set up, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning, Foss. Welcome.
Thank you. How's it going?
I'm very good. How are you? How's the lockdown been treating you?
Good, thank you. Yeah, it's hoping that we can get out soon, but yeah, coping okay.
Yeah, likewise. Hi, good morning. Morning, Vienna. Hi, Jackie. G'day, Stuart. So I can see there are 51 people online already. So why don't we get started, Foss?
Awesome.
Cool. So I'll start by quickly doing a quick intro, and then we can get into it. So my name is Knight Hou. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Relab. And on the stage with me, we have Foss from RICO.
Yeah, good day, everyone. I'm Foss from RICO, CEO and co-founder, and we have a planning software product in a similar kind of area to Relab.
Fantastic. Welcome, Kelly. Hi, Carmen, Mark. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with Relab, so why don't I and then give our own bit of context around the partnership between the two brands, and then let's get straight into it. So Relab is a software platform that's aimed to help remove barriers to access data and information for property professionals. So we, as a company, we started back in 2016, and right now we have over 45,000 registered users and over 1,200 paying subscribers using Relab. So as we were working on the platform, we're hearing lots of feedback from our users from the front line, especially from the real estate agent professionals, and they're telling us that with the unitary plan changes that's happening in Auckland, many properties would have development potential. However, there's a knowledge gap between most of our users versus a development potential. So they came to us and saying, hey, Relab team, are you able to come up with a product that can simply and clearly tell us what are the unitary plan rules that's associated with properties across Auckland, so that we can understand a little bit more context before we go ahead and say engage an architect or engage a planner to carry out a full-blown feasibility study. And that's when we came across Foss and his team at RICO, who are specialized in planning automation technology. And basically the two teams met up, and the rest is history.
Sounds right.
So why don't we so the two teams have been working on a new product, and it is called a Relab Planning Report. Now, it is not released into production yet because the team are still fine-tuning some finer details. However, for the demo today, I have got a couple of examples of those reports that I'd like to share with everyone as a sneak peek. So just bear with me to share my screen. Okay, so can everyone see my screen okay? Foss, can you see my screen?
Fantastic. Yeah, I can see it.
Cool. So this is the Relabs landing page, which many of our users online will be very familiar with. So basically, you just type in an address. So for example, just use this Epsom address as example. So we are here at number 33 Claude Road in Epsom. Now, for many of our existing Relab users, you're familiar with the mapping features on the left-hand side, where you can go through and check out the services, the contours, whether there are any flooding zones or overland flood path. And very importantly, the unitary plan layer, where you can tell straight away that this piece of land falls under unitary plan, mixed housing, urban zoning. And if we keep going on the different layers, you can see the recent consents being approved in the area, as well as recent market listings. Now, on the right-hand side, you will see a number of features, including subdivision calculator. We're working, once the new Relab Planning Report is launched, you'll see an additional button next to the subdivision calculator that says Relab Planning Report. And you can click on the button and then download a report that's similar to this. So this was a report that I downloaded this morning, as I said, from our test environment, and we hope to bring this to everyone in the coming weeks. So this report is fully automated. The title is RPR, Relab Planning Report. Basically, as you can see, it's a 20+ page report. It's fully automated that gives our Relab Pro users, which are paid users, full access into all the data that we have about this property. So let's drill down a little bit into the table of contents. So
hey, Knight, sorry to interrupt. I can just see a few comments coming through in the chat about the screen quality, if it's possible to
make it bigger.
Yeah, make it bigger or anything. There's just a few people leaving comments about
Absolutely
not being able to see.
So why don't I try? Thank you for letting me know, because when I'm in this view, I can't really see the comment. Thanks, Foss. Would that be better?
No worries. Yeah, I can see Lou says she can see it okay. Vienna says better.
Okay, awesome. So thanks, team. Just let us know if you have any issues seeing my screen resolution. So why don't I start from the beginning again? So this report is on just a random address that I've chosen beforehand, 33 Claude Road in Epsom, and it's a mixed housing suburban zoning. And the title is Relab Property Report. So essentially, it's a feasibility 101 for our users, who are not a planning specialist or architect, but who still need to have that basic level of understanding about this property. So let's keep going. So here's our table of contents, and here you can see we have more than 20 pages. This report is packed with information such as your basic property details, sales history, valuations, lots of mapping about underground services, flooding, contour, zoning, any publicly owned land. So 5 different maps, as well as unitary plan specific information, which Foss and I will go into a bit deeper around the zoning standard, the activities table, and any overlays, controls, and designations, which are unitary plan specific. So let's keep going. We have a disclaimer page and a big beta watermark across the page, because this is, as I said, in our test environment, we're still testing the fine-tuning the details. So first map is a boundary map, which we've measured out all the boundaries of the subject sites. And then we have a high-res version of a satellite view, which is no doubt very helpful. If you want to print it out, you can print out all of the report or any selected pages. Now, the next one here is just a high-level property details with a certificate title, the land size, the land type, the zoning, the standard CV, and the property details, for example, number of bedrooms and bathrooms, etc. It has a sales history. It has a title records page, which shows any current or historical title interest. It has a CV and a rental valuation. In this case, the rental valuation data is missing. Now, I was talking about that the report is packed with high-res and colorful maps. When you're accessing site, these are the things that's important for you. This one is the first one, which is underground services. It's clearly marked out the location of this address as well as the nearby infrastructure. Red represents stormwater and green represent the other way. Red represent wastewater and green represent stormwater. Now, Foss, from as someone who's been working in planning area for a wee while, I'm assuming this is important from your point of view when you're looking at a site.
Yeah, so typically the infrastructure, the stormwater and the wastewater are handled by a development engineer. But from the planning perspective, there needs to be the capacity in the area. So for example, if you don't have a stormwater connection, there needs to be, you need to look into other solutions like soakage, so it's not kind of good to go from the start, and you'll need to do a little bit of work to make the site work. And in terms of the other factors, there's like combined lines, which is something to look out for here. If there's a combined line servicing the site, that also results in issues from a planning perspective, because the council's looking to separate most of the combined lines that they have. Combined line for reference is just a stormwater and wastewater in one pipe, as opposed to two separate pipes, and we're moving away from that in kind of recent times. So yeah, so the servicing can be like it's a real basic need for particularly any increase in density, like multi-unit housing development. So it's kind of a very important first start when you're looking at a site, to just make sure that the whatever you're proposing can be serviced, and if there's going to be any planning issues around and allowing for that.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Foss. Hey, I'm just going to make a quick comment. For those of our audience that are online, if you have any questions, please send them in the chat box. And once we've gone through this report, we'll take a pause and look at any questions, and happy to go into any specific examples as well. Okay, the next map here is our high-res version satellite map with infrastructure overlay, which again, no doubt is helpful for you to get a further context on the subject site. And this is the first time outside of Auckland GIS map that a user can download a high-res colorful image of the site and infrastructure. And we know that maybe not every user are carrying a big laptop in front of them. So this report allows you to print it out in A3, A4 format and present it to your customers to help them. The next one, we have a flooding map, which again shows any flood sensitive, flood prone areas, if there are any. In this case, it looks pretty clear. And if you're, once you get this report, if you're stuck, we have legend on each and every page that explains to you what are the different overlays means. Contour, again, contour is important, especially when it comes to development and earthworks required. So that is a separate map that we included on this page. And zoning map. This zoning map, it was taken in very zooming level, if you like. So it's like a bird's eye view. And purpose is you can get a really good idea of the surrounding suburbs and what are the different around you, which in some cases would have an impact from a planning point of view. Am I correct, Foss? Okay, I've just might be having some internet issues. While we wait for Foss to come back, I'll just keep taking everyone through, and when Foss rejoins us, we can ask them the questions. So my point being, we have a separate zoning map that shows you the subject site and all the surrounding different zoning types. In this case, the subject site is in urban, mixed housing urban area. Next door, we have mixed housing single house, and further away, we have some terrace house and apartment zoning. This is in Epsom, and give you the high level idea from a zoning point of view. Now, one more map, and this map shows any publicly owned land. If there are any, they will be highlighted on this map. It doesn't look like there are too many near the subject site. A few sort of near Manukau Road, but not close to the site we're looking at. Now, if I keep going, this is this page. Starting from here, this is where our collaboration between Relab and RICO have really started. The heavy lifting starts from here. Can you zoom in again? where you get this maps. Okay, hi Alex. In terms of, if I can go back on those maps are all produced in the report format, Alex. So this, if you have missed the beginning of this webinar, this is the new product called Relab Planning Report. Basically, it's a 101 planning feasibility report that we've created for our users. This is a sneak preview because we're still putting the finishing touches on this report. Hopefully, we'll be releasing this to all our Relab paid subscribers over the next few weeks. But all these maps are generated in this nicely packed PDF for you. So I was just going through different pages of this report. Now we're in page 15. This is the last one of the 5 high-res version of the mapping will be included in this report. And the next page shows us the zoning type. Now, this is where a lot of our customers are saying to us, hey, Relab team, can you tell us a little bit more about the unitary plan information so that I can better help my customers to understand the development potential of their sites, or to get a better gauge of a new listing they're going to in terms of future development potential. This is where we partnered up with RICO to generate zoning specific standards for you. In this case, the subject site is a mixed housing urban zoning. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit more. And we have a table that clearly demonstrate all the relevant zoning standards. Height restriction, 11 meters. You can't go over 11 meters without resource condition. Height in relation to boundary. This is the ratio that start from your fence area, which needs to 3 meters high, and you draw a 45-degree line inwards, and that will form what's called like a building envelope. So to be compliant with this zoning, mixed housing suburban, your future development, your concept drawing needs to stay within the envelope. Otherwise, you'll have to go through the resource plan application process to demonstrate why you're not keeping within the boundaries. We have a minimum subdivision standard here, which is 300 squares according to unitary plan. And we have a number of setback settings, which front setback, side and rear. This is how much clearance you need to keep for your future development. Again, this will impact depending on the shape of the site, and depending on how big the site is, this will have impact on the development feasibility. So I'm going to take a pause here, team, and check whether we have Foss come online. Knight, can you please pop Foss back on the stage? Right, good point. Let me see if I can get Foss back. I'm sorry, team. There we go. Hi. Yes, we can see you. You're back. No worries. Hey, thanks, Mark. I'm just reading comment and Alex. Thanks for being very patient, and Jackie, with our technology. We're all in lockdown, and my Wi-Fi would crash from time to time, depending on what the kids are watching on their iPad. So thanks for your patience. Yes, absolutely. High demand of Wi-Fi. Thanks, Louise. Okay, let me go back to where we were before, which is I was just going through this new product called Relab Planning Report, and it's a 20+ page report. We're just only halfway through it. I think I was talking about the zoning map and the public land map, where really the heavy lifting started between RICO, especially on RICO's part, providing us accurate and professional level of zoning information, of Auckland unitary plan information. So let me make this a little bit bigger. So this zoning type and zoning standard Foss, would you like to make any comments? Because you are a real pro here.
Yeah, so coming to work with Relab on this report, from a planning perspective, obviously planning's quite a complicated and a case-by-case like profession. Like the rules can get really complicated, and the way that they are applied can change depending on the site and what you're doing there. So our goal with this planning report was to provide you with as much of a kind of indication of what were the planning issues and what were the kind of the rough outlines to be considering when you're thinking about what kind of proposal you're going to put on the site, like whether it's a development. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of background on our approach, because we didn't want to lump too much information. So what this page is here is basically a summary of all of the key standards which apply to the site. And that can give you an indication of the kinds of things you're able to do on the site. There's also links next to each of the standards. So for example, like next to the front setback link, if you click that, it'll take you to the Auckland Council Unitary Plan page where that rule is. So you can see here he's clicked, Knight's clicked for yards, and there's the yard standard at the bottom of the page there. And that's where you can get a little bit more information. So what this will do in the first instance is let you know for yourself a rough guide of what applies.
It's interesting.
And then it will also inform you so that
again,
if you do go
we're
down
getting
the track
a
and you're
lot
talking
of
to
feedback from
specialists like
our
a planner
customers
or
saying,
an architect,
"Hey,
you have that
I'm an agent. I'm trying to help a buyer, and he's asking me this question for this address. Is it subdividable?" And the agent's stuck in the middle because they're not planning specialists. Many of them are not, and B, they need to be responsible for the information they provide to the customers. And C, that asking whether a site is subdividable is like asking how long a piece of string. You need to really be specific and look into unitary plan. So this product was designed to give anybody, it's like the open book. This is a dictionary that we help simplify the process for you. So when you do have that conversation with a planner, a planning specialist, you know exactly what you're talking about. For example, you're talking about height in relation to boundary, or whether you be talking about building coverage. Okay, shall we carry on? Now, the next page is activities table. Again, shows us the permitted activities and restricted discretionary activities, as well as discretionary activities, which will trigger a resource consent. Now, Foss, do you mind just sharing with our audience, what do what does it mean? They have different categories: permitted, restricted, discretionary, and discretionary activities. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so in keeping with the theme of the second page, where we're just trying to give you upfront an indication of what you can do on the site from a planning perspective, the activities are basically the planning term for what you can do on the site. So what we put in the report here is a list of all the activities, and these are straight from the unitary plan. And so these will give you an indication of what you can do and what level of restriction is on that activity. So it's been organized here by permitted activities at the top, and that means you're permitted as of right to do these without a resource consent application. And moving down, you can see we go into restricted discretionary, discretionary, and then non-complying. And so at each stage, you're basically getting opened up to more discretion from the council and towards a non-complying, which is where the council kind of explicitly says that they don't want this. This is not part of the plan to be doing this on your site. And so what's happening there is, from restricted discretionary, I'd say that's the most common type of activity. Probably about 60% of applications that we see going through for restricted discretionary activities. So by far the most common. And
cool, that makes perfect sense.
So it's not to say that you're not allowed to
basically,
do it, but
starting from permitted, the difficulty level will increase
you're having increased
every tier.
restrictions,
it's like a
and
tier
you're
of
having
system.
to do more to meet the kind of to make sure that the plan is being met, and that you're meeting all the planning requirements, because you are straying from that, what is permitted.
Thank you. And again, just a quick reminder for our guests online. Understand a lot of our guests are not from a planning background. So if you have any questions,
going to be a more complicated consent,
and Foss and I will be
non-permitted
answering
activities, like
once we've gone through this report.
And the more
okay, let's keep going.
Non-complying they are.
The next section here we have overlays, controls, and designations. Now, Foss, would you mind sharing with us what you mean, why they're important, from your point of view, please? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. So kind of what we've talked about up to this point has been the zone of a site, and the zone is the core rules that apply to your site. And that will be like a mixed housing urban zone. And the zones are very much in relation to where the land is, in relation to transport, town centres, suburban areas, urban areas. So they're kind of the core group of rules that control what goes on a site. Beyond that, we have like overlays, controls, and designations. I'll give more on designations in a bit. But for overlays and controls, they're basically additional rules that apply to your site because of a special planning issue. So the example we've got two examples on the report in front of us here. One is the volcanic view shafts overlay, and that is where the height of what you can do on a site is controlled because there's a view shaft to the volcanoes. And there's also a special character area overlay there. And that is where areas like Ponsonby and Birkenhead Point, where there are a lot of character villas. And in those cases, there are additional controls on what you can do to those special character buildings, because they're trying to maintain the character of that area. And so the rules are all pushing towards that effect. So it's kind of, I just think of it as like Lego blocks. I mean, you've got your kind of your base rules, and then you're adding overlays on top of them. And so they kind of apply in addition. So overlays are particularly important to look out for because they can really affect what you're doing on the site and what you're able to do.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That was very clear. So I loved your Lego building analogies.
When you're assessing the feasibility of a site, to be making sure that what you're kind of intending, and of course, to do
being a father of two young boys, I'm dealing with Lego on a daily basis. So that all makes sense to me.
Yeah, obviously, if it's something you can't work out or is looking a bit complicated, then you probably have to take it on to a specialist.
Which we have built in school zones that gives our users a straight, very instant view of what are the schools nearby, in zone and out of zone, primary as well as intermediate and high schools. And lastly, just a bit of demographic data from stats, which, by the way, all of these info on school zones and all the different maps are available on Relab today. So that takes us to the end of the sample report that we've generated. Now, I'm going to stop sharing the screen now and see whether we have any questions. So I've joined, like, any chance to be able to access the PDF doc. Hi, Saurabh, Malik. Hopefully, I've pronounced your name right. No worries. Just get in touch with our team, and we're more than happy to send you a sample report. Or at the end of this video webinar, you will receive a recording of the entire webinar. Sarang, yes, a PDF for the description would be perfect for reference. Great, it will be easier to quickly reference. I'm just trying to understand, Sarang, what do you mean? A PDF for the description would be perfect. Are you saying that you want to get a copy of a sample PDF, or are you saying that in the PDF that we should be adding more in terms of legend or description to explain what the contents are? I'm just going to quickly read. Where can I get this report? Awesome. Hey, Tom, you will be able to get this report in a couple of weeks' time. Once we release this report into production, it is a paid feature. So you either have to become a Relab subscriber or get on the trial to give it a go. Kelly, yes, a PDF for how to read it. Good point. So it's almost like a how-to page at the beginning of the report. Just here is a quick summary of how to use this report. Yeah, definitely. We'll take that on board, Kelly. Thank you very much. Gary, can we have a report which combines two neighboring properties and make it one report, like a combined total area and all services? So that, Gary, is a feature that we currently don't have yet, but we can definitely put that on our future product roadmap and have multiple sites combined. Or another alternative is you could generate, say, two reports for two neighboring properties and look at it that way. Richard, thank you. What is the difference between flood zones? Okay, now we have a question regarding the difference between the flood zones, for example, 1 in 100 years events versus overland flow path. What needs to be considered? Shall we use a live example, and maybe Foss here we can tag team on explaining flooding zones? So cool. So right now I'm on Relab's main page. I'm not in the report anymore, but let me just go into an area that would have the overland flood path as well as, here we go. So can you see my map okay, Foss? Cool. So this is Fairholme Avenue, corner of Fairholme and Parr Road, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in
bottom
on that one.
of Epsom. So when I turn on the flood or flooding layer on the map, you will see a number of different shapes and colors on the screen. And what do they mean? It's going to legend. So the mesh area represents flood prone area. The solid blue is floodplain. And
Yes.
these light mesh blue represent flood sensitive. And also the solid line represents overland flood path. Do you mind maybe just giving us a high level explanation on what those represents, please?
Yeah, so both of these issues that you've raised are natural hazards. So a flood zone is where there's an actual, like, the water level is going to rise up during a 1 in 100 storm. So that's where the water's pooling. So it's usually happening at the bottom of a valley or a kind of a dip in the land contour. And that's actually how they're made on the maps too, is they're in dips in the land. And overland flow paths are similar to a flood zone. However, they are pathways where water flows down during a rain event. So in many ways, they're quite similar. They're both caused by storm events, and rainfall. An overland flow path is simply a path where water is flowing into, and a flood zone is simply where water is building up and the water level is rising. So what you need to be considering for both of those is, so the rules for these are in like the natural hazards chapter of the unitary plan. And what you need to be considering there is what you're doing on the site, one, how the flooding affects the house, for example, or if you're putting in a new fence or something, it could divert the flow. So in one sense, you're considering what does the flooding issue do to the house, and how do we prevent the house flooding? And on the other issue, you're preventing any carry-on effects from if you build a new house and it's pushing water off into the neighbor's property, or other issues like that, where you're diverting the flow or changing the flow, which can have carry-on effects. You're also considering
Cool.
those.
Thank you very much.
So these
That's an awesome
an issue like a
explanation.
floodplain will almost always require
So let's have a
what's
the time now? Let's take another 2 or 3 questions.
What they'll do is they'll map
just
out
in the interest
the
of
flooding
time.
issue in
We have
more
one
detail,
here from Alex. Hey team,
and then they'll
thinking
provide
about
recommendations for how to avoid adverse effects to your property and what you're doing there, and also to surrounding properties.
Are there any restrictions on the width of driveway and how it relates to what you can build on the rear section? Thanks in advance. The driveway question is a really good one, Alex, and that's why I'm just going to share my screen again. Let's just take any report, for example. This one was chosen. This was one that we were going through. If I go back to page number 17, no, sorry, 16. Here we have zoning type. It says residential mixed housing suburban. And at the very bottom of this table, we have parking rates. Now, I know Foss, during the planning phase of this report, we have had a lot of conversation and a lot of thinking behind parking rates and rear access, etc. And we settled on that we will have this parking rates here that says refer to standard E27.6.2, and we provide the user with a link to that. Is this the relevant page for Alex's question?
Yeah, so to answer his question, it is not always straightforward. So we've given all the straightforward answers we can in the report, where there's kind of multiple issues to consider. So for your specific example, with a 3 meter wide driveway in a terraced housing zone, within the transport chapter, which is that chapter Knight pointed to, the E27. So that's the transport chapter of the unitary plan. There are rules controlling issues like your specific one was width of the driveway. Yeah, so in terms of the width of the driveway, that is dependent on a few things. There's how long the driveway is, because there can also be a requirement for passing lanes if it's I think over 50 meters. Yeah, but basically what's happening is it's getting more complicated and it's being affected by a number of factors, and this is typically going to affect the proposal. And it might affect the proposal in the way you're talking about what you can build on the rear section. It might change the number of houses you can fit in, because you might need to allow for a bigger driveway or allow for maneuvering spaces. And these kinds of things can only really be worked out when you've got a development being designed and there's an architect involved in working out the actual maneuvering space and the width of the driveway. So yeah, so there's no one size fits all answer for that, unfortunately. And that's just kind of the nature of there's changing site characteristics, which mean the rules apply differently. and also then you're going to have your proposal. And for a question like how much you can build on the site, it's going to be dependent on those kinds of things like maneuvering and making sure that the vehicles can access the site properly. I hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like Foz, your comment around this report. Obviously, it's generated by our systems with RICO's help. Everything that we show on the report is pretty much kind of black and white. It's what it is. We tell the story as is. But if there are any further consideration that's required, it's probably, I mean, we definitely advise our users, our customers, to seek expert advice, whether it's traffic engineer, whether it's planner. Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Let's take 2 more questions. Is there a way to, this one's from Lorraine, is there a way to work out the potential depth of flooding zone to help work out how much landfill will be required to lift building out of the flood zone?
So yeah, so that I can take that question if you want, Knight.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah. So in terms of the process there, again, is going to be specific to the site, because what will have to happen is an engineer will have to calculate what the predicted flood levels will be in a 1 in 100 storm. And so that will then provide a minimum floor level for your house. And so once you've got a minimum floor level for your house, then you can answer the question which you've posed of how much landfill do I need to raise up the floor level of the house to the required level. So yeah, so that's getting into the engineering calculation kind of area. And so yeah, that would be the process to resolve that issue. There's no kind of quick way to work it out.
Awesome. Cool. Let's take one more question in the interest of time. We have a question here from Nick. Hi, team. I heard sometimes stormwater can be replaced with soakage. Is there a way you can simply check this?
Again, I have to give a similar answer to the existing ones. The way they test for soakage is they do have to actually go onto the site, like an engineer, and drill a hole in the ground to see what kind of water disposal the ground will take. Different soil types mean that water flows through them at different rates. So what you're basically doing there is you're drilling a hole, working out how much water, how fast the water can soak into the land, hence the name soakage. And then you're seeing if that rate of getting rid of water is enough to service all of the impervious areas on whatever you're proposing. So if you're putting in 8 terraced houses or something, you're going to be increasing the area of roof, which is going to be more water needs to be disposed of into the land. And so it's going to need, the land's going to need to be a lot more porous and allow a lot more water through. So yeah, so and again, the process for working that out does require going to the site with having an engineer go to the site and conduct some drilling and experimentation. Cool.
We know from experience that there are a number of a large area of Epsom that there is no stormwater pipe infrastructure, and you can tell that by going to Epsom, right, and turn on the underground services layer, and as we were, so the red lines represent wastewater and green lines represent stormwater, and we can see there are a large areas of this suburb here that's got no green lines that run through them, which is an indication that it's probably using soakage for the stormwater treatment. And here, this way you can get a high level idea of what's going on in the neighborhood. Another pretty handy tool is we have got this recent consent feature. So by clicking on consent, you will be able to see any recently approved resource or building consent. And for example, this one here that says to building a resource consent, you can click on the address, actually go into details and see what this consent actually says. So as we know, approved consent and public info, and maybe through this way, if you have a neighboring, I've just realized I'm not sharing my screen, am I? No. But yeah, there are a number of ways that you can go on Relab website and use the different mapping tools to help you get a gauge. Thanks, Nick. Hey, guys, I really appreciate your time. I think our 45 minutes is up, so why don't we wrap up the webinar. Thank you very much, Foss, for your time.
No, thank you for having me.
Apologies for the wee technical issues, but hopefully you haven't missed too much. And this webinar will be available, a recording will be available in your inbox in an hour's time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with us. So my email, I'll pop it in the channel. My email is knight@relab.co.nz. And Foss, why don't you pop your email in channels in case
yeah,
any of our audience would like to get in touch. There we go. So foss@rico.nz.
awesome.
Okay, team.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming along, and good questions.
Thank you. Stay safe, team. Bye-bye.